Welcome to Heartfelt Stories. The silence in that room was so thick, you could have cut it with a knife. I'll never forget the way my father's words just hung there in the air, casual as can be. "Emma," he said, leaning back in his chair like we were discussing weekend plans, "you can take the spare bedroom downstairs or you can find somewhere else to live." Just like that. Like he was asking if I wanted sugar in my tea. We were all gathered around the dinner table. The very same table where I'd spent countless nights doing my homework as a kid, where we'd celebrated birthdays with frosting-covered smiles and silly candles. Now it was the stage for ultimatums. My mother sat across from me, methodically slicing her chicken into precise, tiny squares. Her eyes were glued to her plate like if she looked at me she might crack. Like I wasn't even there. Like her own daughter had become invisible. The spare bedroom. The room they kept for out-of-town relatives. For friends just passing through. For people who didn't belong. I was 24 years old. I'd come back home temporarily after what felt like the worst year of my life. Lost my job, completely burned out, just trying to find solid ground again. When I'd first shown up with my boxes and my broken spirit, they told me it was fine. "Stay as long as you need, Emma. Family takes care of family." Apparently my time was up. And nobody had bothered to tell me the clock was ticking. I don't understand," I said, choosing each word carefully, trying to keep my voice from shaking. "I've been staying in my bedroom. My room." My mother finally lifted her gaze. Her expression was pinched, irritated, like I was being deliberately difficult. "That room isn't yours anymore, Emma," she said, each word sharp and deliberate. "Your sister needs it when she comes to visit. And frankly, sweetheart, it's time you stopped acting like this arrangement is permanent. Acting like this is permanent." Those words hit me like a slap. I worked 2 jobs. 2. I paid them rent every single month right on time. I bought my own groceries, kept them separate on a different shelf. I stayed out of their way, didn't bring friends over, cleaned up after myself without being asked. I was quieter than a mouse. But none of that mattered. None of it counted. My sister Rebecca, who lived 3 comfortable hours away, who visited maybe once every couple of months, whose childhood trophies and faded photographs still decorated every surface of my room, she needed it more than I did. My father cleared his throat, that commanding sound that used to make me sit up straight as a little girl. "You're not a child anymore, Emma. Adults don't live with their parents." I almost laughed. I almost laughed at the sheer irony of it all. Rebecca was 30 years old. She still had her own key to the house. She showed up unannounced whenever she felt like it, raided the refrigerator, borrowed money she never paid back. But she wasn't the problem. I was. I looked around that table. At the chipped plates we'd had for years, at the familiar smell of Mom's cooking that used to mean comfort, at the house that only ever felt like home when I was doing exactly what they wanted, exactly how they wanted it. "So those are my options?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "The spare room or leave?" My mother nodded, satisfied. "We're just being honest with you, honey." Honest. That word stabbed deeper than the ultimatum itself, because honesty would have been admitting they'd made this decision weeks ago, maybe months ago. This dinner, this conversation, it was just the moment they finally said it out loud. Before we go any further, please subscribe and like this video and listen to my story till the end. Let me know which city you're listening from in the comments, that way I can see how far my story has traveled. I need you all to hear what happened next. I pushed my chair back slowly. My hands were trembling, but I forced my voice to stay steady. "When do you want me out?" My father hesitated. Just for a second, just for a heartbeat. I saw something flicker across his face. Then it was gone. "Soon," he said. "A few days should be enough." Few days. A few days to pack up my entire life again, to stuff my existence back into boxes and garbage bags. I stood up, pushed my chair in neatly, muscle memory, always cleaning up after myself, and nodded like this was completely normal. Like my own parents hadn't just told me I didn't belong under their roof anymore. "I'll figure it out," I said. Nobody stopped me as I walked away from that table. Not when I climbed the stairs. Not when I closed my bedroom door, the door to the room that apparently wasn't mine anymore. Not when I sat on the edge of my bed and stared at walls that suddenly felt like they belonged to a stranger. That night I lay awake in the darkness, listening to the house settle around me. Every creak of the floorboards sounded like a countdown. Spare bedroom or move out. They thought those were my only two choices. They had no idea what I was about to choose. What will Emma decide? Keep watching to find out. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard my father's voice again, so casual, so dismissive. You can take the spare bedroom or move out. Like I was a piece of furniture they could shove into storage or toss on the curb. By the time the sun started creeping through my curtains, I'd made my decision. I wasn't moving into that spare bedroom. That room wasn't a compromise. It was a message written in neon lights. You're temporary. You're tolerated. You don't belong. I went downstairs early, before anyone else had woken up. Made a pot of coffee, the smell filling the kitchen. Wiped down the counters, loaded the dishwasher. Muscle memory. Years and years of trying to prove I deserved to take up space in a house I'd grown up in. My mother appeared in the doorway while I was rinsing the sponge. Her hair was still messy from sleep, her robe pulled tight around her. So, she said, not quite meeting my eyes, have you thought about it? I nodded, setting down the sponge carefully. Yes, I have. Her shoulders relaxed visibly. She actually smiled. Good. That's good, Emma. The spare room is all ready for you. I put fresh sheets on the bed yesterday and I'm moving out. She froze mid-sentence, her mouth still open. What? I'll be out within the week, I said calmly, surprised at how steady my voice sounded. Probably sooner. Emma. Her face twisted into a frown. You don't need to be so dramatic. We're offering you a room. You're offering me less, I replied, looking her straight in the eye. And calling it generosity. My father walked in then, coffee mug already in his hand like he'd sensed the tension from upstairs. He stood there silently while my mother explained, her voice getting higher and tighter, throwing in comments about me being too sensitive and misunderstanding their intentions. Finally my dad spoke. Where are you even going to go, Emma? That was the thing. I didn't fully know yet. I didn't have a perfect plan, a backup apartment waiting, a friend's couch guaranteed. But for the first time in a long time, the uncertainty felt better than staying. I'll figure it out, I said simply. They exchanged one of those looks, that parent look they'd perfected over the years, the one that says our child is making a huge mistake and will come crawling back any day now. Let them think it. Let them believe it. I started packing that same day. Not loudly, not angrily, not slamming drawers or throwing things around. Just quietly, methodically. Piece by piece. Clothes folded into boxes. Books stacked into bags. Old memories I didn't even bother photographing. Rebecca's childhood trophies stayed on the shelf in my old room. Her room now, apparently. Nobody suggested moving them to make space for my things. On the third day, my mother appeared in the doorway, watching me tape up another box. You know, she said, her arms crossed. Most people would be grateful we're letting them stay at all. I stopped what I was doing. Looked at her. Really truly looked at her. Most parents, I said slowly, wouldn't make their own child feel like a burden for existing. She scoffed, shaking her head. You're twisting everything around, Emma. Maybe, I admitted. Or maybe this is just the first time I'm not twisting myself to fit. She didn't have an answer for that. She just turned and left, her footsteps heavy on the stairs. That night I slept on the floor of my empty room, surrounded by boxes and bags. I'd already given the bed back to the house, stripped it down to the bare mattress. The next morning I loaded my car. Trip after trip, box after box, my entire life fitting into a sedan with room to spare. My father watched from the porch, arms crossed over his chest. No goodbye hug. No call us when you get there, or drive safe, sweetheart. Just silence. As I pulled out of the driveway, I kept waiting for it to hit. The familiar guilt that had controlled me for so long, the panic, that desperate urge to turn the car around and apologize for daring to exist. It never came. Instead, there was something else. Something lighter. Relief. I moved into a tiny studio apartment across town. Bare white walls, furniture from thrift stores, a mattress still on the floor because I couldn't afford a bed frame yet. But it was mine. No spare room, no conditions, no quiet reminders that I didn't belong. Weeks passed, then months. The silence from my parents was deafening. They didn't call much. When they did, it was surface-level stuff, whether work, house, traffic in your area. Nothing real. Nothing that mattered. And I noticed something strange, something I hadn't expected. The farther I got from that house, the easier it became to breathe. What my parents didn't realize was this. They hadn't pushed me into independence. They'd pushed me into freedom. And I was done, absolutely done, trying to earn a place I should have had all along. But the real shock was still coming. Stay tuned. They didn't notice at first. That was the part that hurt more than I'd expected. Not anger, not shouting, just how easy it was for them to keep living their lives without me in the background. No calls asking if I was settling in okay. No, did you eat today, sweetheart? No concern whatsoever. Then slowly little cracks started to show. My mother called one evening about 3 weeks after I'd left. Frustration sharp in her voice like a knife. Emma, did you take that folder with all the insurance papers? I can't find it anywhere, and your father needs the car insurance information. No, Mom, I said calmly, stirring pasta on my little stove. It's in the blue drawer in the office. Bottom shelf, left side. A long pause. Oh, she sounded surprised. She hadn't even known where it was. A week later my father texted. How do I log into that streaming account? Can't remember the password. Then another text. Wi-Fi router acting up. What's that thing you used to do to fix it? Then one more. There's a bill here I don't understand. Medical something. Did you handle these before? I answered each message politely, briefly, like I was customer service. Like I was a helpful stranger, not their daughter. And that's when everything shifted. They didn't miss me. They missed what I did. The silent fixing. The remembering. The emotional labor I've been performing for years without even realizing it was labor. One Sunday afternoon my phone rang. Mom again. The house feels different, she said. And there was something in her voice I couldn't quite identify. It's too quiet. Empty somehow. I smiled even though she couldn't see it. Yeah, I bet it does. She hesitated, and I could practically hear her choosing her words carefully. You could come over for dinner sometime. Use your old room if you want to stay over. It's still there. Your old room. Not your room. Not your home. I'm actually pretty busy, Mom, I said. And for once in my life it wasn't a lie. It wasn't an excuse. Life had filled in the empty spaces faster than I'd ever imagined it could. I'd made friends, real friends who actually noticed when I went quiet, who checked in, who cared. My new job treated me like a human being, not an inconvenience. Even silence felt kinder in my little studio than it ever had in that big house. About a month later, Rebecca called. My sister, the golden child, the one whose childhood bedroom was more sacred than my actual presence. Mom and Dad are saying you've changed, she said, her tone almost accusatory. That you're being distant and cold. I am distant, I replied simply. Distance changes things, Rebecca. She laughed, but it was awkward, uncomfortable. Oh, come on, Em. You'll get over it. You always do. No, I said softly, staring at a photo on my wall, me and my real friends at coffee last week, all of us laughing. I got through it. There's a difference. She didn't know what to say to that. The final moment came on a random Tuesday in October. I remember because the leaves were just starting to turn orange outside my window, and I was drinking hot chocolate, feeling peaceful. My father called. His voice was different, less firm, less certain than I'd ever heard it. Your mother's been upset, he said quietly. She thinks maybe we were too harsh with you. Back when you left. Maybe. After all this time, after everything, maybe they'd been too harsh. I waited, letting the silence stretch between us. Well, he asked, almost helpless. Don't you want to talk about it? I did want to talk about it, but not the way he expected. Dad, I said carefully. I've built a life where I don't feel like I'm constantly asking permission to exist, where I'm not waiting for someone to tell me I'm taking up too much space. I'm not giving that up. The silence that followed was heavy, thick with all the things we'd never said to each other. I hope you're happy, Emma, he finally said, and I couldn't tell if it was genuine or bitter. I am, Dad, I replied, meaning every single word. I really truly am. They never apologized. Not outright, not really. No, we're sorry, or we were wrong. That's not who they were. But they stopped offering the spare bedroom. They stopped making demands. They stopped treating me like I owed them something just for existing. And for the first time in my entire life, they spoke to me like someone who could leave and stay gone. Not out of anger or spite, but out of self-respect. Tell me in the comments if you've ever felt this way, like you had to earn your place in your own family. And if you've dealt with something similar, please share your story. You're not alone in this. Subscribe for more stories about standing your ground and reclaiming your life, because we all deserve to feel like we belong. As here's what I've learned. The most important lesson is coming up next. Here's what I've learned in the months since I drove away from that house. Sometimes the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally are the very ones putting conditions on everything. Took me years to see it. Years of thinking I was the problem, that if I just tried harder, stayed quieter, took up less space, maybe I'd finally be enough. But I was always enough. The problem was never me. I started noticing things I'd never let myself see before. Like how Rebecca could show up unannounced at any hour, raid the refrigerator, leave her laundry for Mom to do, borrow money she never paid back, and it was charming. It was just Rebecca being Rebecca. But when I asked to stay in my childhood bedroom during the hardest year of my life, that was too much. That was an imposition. I remember being 16, getting home late from my part-time job, and my mother waiting up to lecture me about responsibility. But Rebecca at 16? She'd stumble in after curfew, and Dad would just chuckle and say, "Kids will be kids." I remember paying my own way through community college while watching Rebecca get a blank check for university 3 hours away. I remembered and I remembered and I remembered. And the anger I'd been swallowing for years finally had somewhere to go. Not outward in explosions or confrontations, but inward into understanding. Into clarity. My little studio apartment became my sanctuary. I painted the walls a soft blue, something I'd always wanted to do to my bedroom as a teenager, but Mom said it would ruin the resale value. I hung up artwork that I loved, not stuff that matched the house aesthetic. I played music at whatever volume I wanted. I existed loudly for the first time in my life. Work got better too. I'd landed a job at a small marketing firm, and my boss actually listened to my ideas, actually valued my input. The first time she complimented my work, I almost cried in the bathroom because I couldn't remember the last time someone had noticed me doing something right instead of pointing out everything I did wrong. I made friends, Sophie from work, Marcus from the coffee shop I'd started frequenting, a whole book club of people who met Tuesday nights and actually remembered things I told them, who asked follow-up questions, who treated my stories like they mattered. It sounds so simple, doesn't it? Being treated like you matter. But when you've spent your whole life being made to feel invisible, it's revolutionary. About 4 months after I'd moved out, Rebecca showed up at my apartment. Unannounced, of course, because boundaries had never applied to her. I answered the door in my paint-stained clothes. I'd been touching up the kitchen, and her eyes widened at the sight of my place. "Wow, this is cozy," she said, and I could hear the judgment underneath. Cozy meant small. Cozy meant not good enough. "It's home," I said simply, not inviting her in. She shifted uncomfortably in the doorway. "So, Mom sent me. She wanted me to talk to you." Of course she did. Mom couldn't do it herself. "About what?" I asked, even though I knew. "About all this." Rebecca gestured vaguely. "This whole thing where you're not coming around anymore. Where you're being stubborn." Stubborn. Not hurt. Not protecting myself. Stubborn. "Rebecca," I said, leaning against my doorframe. "Did Mom and Dad ever make you feel like you were a burden? Like your existence was an inconvenience they were graciously tolerating?" She blinked. "What? No. Emma, you're being dramatic. Did they ever offer you the spare bedroom in the house you grew up in? That's different." "How?" I asked. "How is it different?" She opened her mouth, then closed it. Opened it again. I don't visit that often. When I do visit, it's special, so you get the childhood bedroom with all your trophies and photos," I finished for her. "And I get told I'm acting like my stay is permanent, even though I was paying rent, even though I was working 2 jobs, even though I was living there, not visiting." Rebecca's face flushed. "You're twisting things." "No," I said gently, sadly. "I'm just finally seeing them clearly." She left after that, confused and defensive. I closed the door and felt nothing. No guilt. No urge to chase after her and apologize. Just peace. The seasons changed. Fall turned to winter. and I had my first Christmas in my studio apartment. I half expected an invitation from my parents, some obligatory, "You should come home for the holidays" call. It never came. Instead, Sophie invited me to her family's celebration. They were loud and chaotic and kept interrupting each other. And her mom hugged me like I'd known her for years, and nobody made me feel like I was taking up space I hadn't earned. I cried in Sophie's guest bathroom that night, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming realization of what family could be, what it should be. My phone buzzed while I was drying my eyes. A text from my mother. "Hope you're having a nice holiday." That was it. No "we miss you." No "wish you were here." Just a polite, distant acknowledgement that holidays existed. I typed back, "I am. Thank you." And I meant it with my whole heart. But one conversation changed everything. Don't miss the conclusion. It was a rainy afternoon in March when my father called again. Almost 6 months had passed since I'd moved out, and the calls had become sparse, polite but empty, like we were distant acquaintances catching up out of obligation. But this call was different. I could hear it in the first word. "Emma." His voice cracked slightly, something I'd never heard before. Can we talk? Really talk?" I was curled up on my couch, rain pattering against my window, a book open in my lap. For a moment I considered saying I was busy, considered protecting the peace I'd built. But something in his voice made me pause. "Okay," I said simply. He was quiet for a moment, and I could picture him in his armchair, the one by the window where he always sat with his coffee. "Your mother and I have been talking," he began. About everything. About how we handled things with you." I didn't help him. Didn't jump in to make it easier. I'd spent too many years doing that. "We thought we were teaching you independence," he continued, his words coming slowly, carefully. "We thought tough love was what you needed. But your mother," his voice caught, "your mother was going through your old room last week, the one we gave to Rebecca, and she found this journal you'd left behind, from when you were 17. My stomach twisted. I remembered that journal. Purple cover, pages filled with teenage angst and pain. "Emma, you wrote about feeling invisible, about trying so hard to be good enough, quiet enough, perfect enough to deserve our attention." He paused, and I heard him take a shaky breath. "You wrote that you felt like a guest in your own home even then." Tears were sliding down my face now, silent and hot. "We didn't know," he said, and now he was definitely crying too. "We didn't know we were making you feel that way. We thought Rebecca was always so demanding, so loud about what she needed. And you were so self-sufficient, so capable. We thought you didn't need us the same way." "I did need you," I whispered. "I just needed you differently." "I know," he said. "I know that now. And Emma, I am so sorry we made you feel like you had to earn your place in our family. I'm sorry we treated you like a burden when you were going through the hardest time in your life. I'm sorry about the guest room ultimatum. I'm sorry we didn't see you." I was full on sobbing now, years of pain pouring out in waves. "Your mother wants to talk to you too," he said. "But she's afraid you won't forgive her. She's afraid we've lost you for good." I wiped my eyes, staring out at the rain. "Dad, I don't know if I can go back to how things were." "I'm not asking you to," he said quickly. "That's not what I want. What I want is to start over. To build something new, something better. Where you feel that you belong. Not in a room but in our hearts. In our family." The words I'd waited my whole life to hear. "It's going to take time," I said, my voice shaking. "I've built a life here. A good life. I'm not giving that up." "I wouldn't want you to," he replied. "I'm proud of you, Emma. For leaving. For choosing yourself. For showing us what we couldn't see. You're stronger than I ever gave you credit for." We talked for 2 more hours. Really talked, not just surface-level pleasantries. He told me about the therapy they'd started going to, couples therapy at first, but it had opened up conversations about their parenting, their favoritism they'd never acknowledged, their failures. He told me Rebecca had been upset when she found out about the journal too, that she'd had no idea how differently they treated us, and it had shaken her. "I can't promise we'll be perfect," my father said as our call was winding down. "We've got a lot of patterns to unlearn, a lot of damage to repair. But I can promise we'll try. If you'll give us the chance." I need space still, I said. But maybe we could try dinner next month. Here at my place. On my terms. We'd like that very much, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you, Emma, for not giving up on us even when we gave up on you. After we hung up, I sat in the quiet of my apartment for a long time. The rain had stopped, and pale sunlight was breaking through the clouds. Was it enough? Was an apology enough to heal years of being made to feel less than? I didn't know yet. Maybe I'd never fully know. But what I did know was this. I wasn't the same Emma who'd sat at that dinner table 6 months ago, hands shaking, being told to take the spare room or leave. I'd chosen option 3, the one they never saw coming. I'd chosen myself. And whether my family learned to truly see me or not, whether we rebuilt something real or just maintained polite distance, I knew I'd be okay. Because the girl who'd felt like a burden, who'd twisted herself into smaller and smaller shapes trying to fit, who'd believed she had to earn love, she was gone. In her place was a woman who knew her worth, who had her own space, her own voice, her own life. A woman who'd learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do isn't fighting to stay somewhere you're not wanted. It's walking away. It's choosing yourself. It's refusing to live in the spare bedroom of someone else's love. My phone buzzed with a text from Sophie. Book club tonight. We're reading the one about second chances. You coming? I smiled, typing back. Wouldn't miss it. Because I'd learned something else too. Family isn't always the people you're born to. Sometimes it's the people who choose to see you, who make space for you without you having to ask, who love you not despite who you are, but because of who you are. I had that now. And as I got ready for book club, pulling on my favorite sweater in my apartment with the blue walls and the mismatched furniture, and the life I'd built from scratch, I felt something I'd never quite felt before. Home. Not a room, not a building, not a place. But a feeling, a knowing, a peace. I was home in myself, and nobody could ever take that away. Sometimes the story isn't about reconciliation. Sometimes it's about liberation, about realizing that you were never the problem, that you don't have to set yourself on fire to keep others warm, that your existence isn't something you have to apologize for. Sometimes the ending isn't everyone coming together in perfect harmony. Sometimes the ending is you standing tall, breathing free, finally understanding that you were always enough. You were always enough. And if my story resonates with you, if you've ever felt like the spare room in someone else's life, please know, you deserve more. You deserve to be someone's priority, not their afterthought. You deserve to take up space. You deserve to be seen. And if you have to walk away to find that, then walk. Walk tall. Walk proud. Walk free. Because on the other side of that door they closed on you, there's a whole world waiting. A world where you're not too much or too little, but exactly perfectly enough. End of story. What would you have done in Emma's situation? Have you ever had to choose yourself over people who were supposed to love you unconditionally? Your story matters. Share it below. And remember, you're never alone in this.